What is up, everybody, and welcome to Pop Stream, the official streaming show from your friendly neighborhood nerds at Pop Culture Classroom, where your community comes together to talk about your media because this is your Pop Stream. I'm one of your hosts, Matt Slater. I'm the Education Program Manager here at PCC. You can find me at Maddie Slay on Twitter, which I hope all of you do. Unfortunately, my usual co-host Tajan could not be able to join us tonight, but filling our rotating cast seat in her first appearance on this season of Pop Stream is Sydney Haven. Welcome back, Sydney.
Hi, it's good to be back.
Sydney, what's the one thing that you read or watched or played since we went on break that you just got to tell everybody about?
Oh my gosh. I thought about this and I'm not prepared for the question. I haven't gotten all the way through, but I've been watching the Shadow and Bone adaptation on Netflix.
Ooh, okay. I haven't gotten to it yet. Excellent, excellent. Well, tonight we're talking remakes and reboots because at the moment we're just surrounded by all of them in pop culture, right? This year we're seeing some really high profile releases like Dune and The Matrix and Cruella, and other properties in games and comics are being rebooted all the time. So we thought we'd take a deep dive and dissect the reboot and remake zeitgeist and talk about what it means for the greater landscape of media and pop culture. And to help us do that, we couldn't think of anyone better than tonight's guest, a comic writer known for her work on Bitch Planet, Pretty Deadly, Aquaman, and Captain Marvel, amongst many, many others. We have Kelly Sue DeConnick with us tonight. How are you doing, Kelly Sue?
I am well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. We really can't wait to talk to you about reboots and remakes tonight and get some of your insight, having, rebooted some characters yourself. But as I was telling you before pre-show or before the show, I am a pop culture nerd by way of video games. And in the last few years have kind of gotten into comics and fallen in love with comics. But when it comes to like history and, all the minutia that a lot of comic lifelong fans know, I'm not there. So for anyone who's on my page, for anyone out there like me, can you tell us how long have you been writing comics and why comics?
I've been writing comics less than 20 years and more than 15, somewhere in here. I haven't quite done the math. And why comics? Because they're the best. I grew up reading comics. I grew up on Air Force bases. And so it's a very familiar language to me. I have a theater background. I have a theater degree from the University of Texas. And so comics are or at least the way, there are different models, but the way that I work in comics, it's a collaborative art form, very much like theater.
I also have a theater degree from Texas Christian University. So another Texas school. Yeah. But I could definitely get those influences as I was reading some of your works over the last couple of days. That's awesome. So theater seems to be like a big fandom thing that you love. What are some of the other, is there any other nerd culture that you love, or what other things do you get nerdy about?
I mean, I get nerdy about kind of everything.
Okay, we'd get along then.
Okay.
But yeah, you got to catch those fish in Animal Crossing. That's excellent.
But yeah, I mean, I'm really nerdy about perfumes. I have a really ridiculous perfume and perfume sample collection. And I don't expect anyone here to go deep nerd on perfumes with me, but I like to read, I read different oral histories of metal music. That's kind of to me. So I'm reading an oral history of hair bands right now. So my nerd is many and broad, but it's not your conventional. I'm not going to throw down for there was the show rundown. It was Godzilla or Kong.
Yeah, we put Kong or Godzilla, right?
Yeah, well, let's see. Both of those things make me think of my son. And we threw him a fifth year, 5-year-old Godzilla birthday party. But I don't think I've ever seen a Godzilla movie. I mean, you absorb a lot through the culture. I know a lot. I know Mothra. I know the singing. I know the whole. But I don't, King Ghidorah because of all of the action figures. But I don't think I've ever seen one. And I took him to see Kong on Broadway, and he has my son has such a soft spot for like the misunderstood monsters, that he was sobbing uncontrollably. So that was
That's so cute.
And it's so sweet, but also so terrible. I knew one of the puppeteers, and so I was like, do you want to go to the stage door and we can meet him? And he was like, no, I just want to go back to the hotel.
Oh my gosh. It's so cool that you get to like share that with him and like share in his nerdiness. Whenever we do professional developments with Pop Culture Classroom, we go out to, teachers and we say, we ask them, what are they nerding out about? And a lot of them, they get kind of clinched at first because they're like, I don't watch the same things that my kids watch. I don't know what Marvel movies they're into or whatever. But then when they open up about, I'm nerdy about being a mom, I'm nerdy about gardening, that connects people and you see people light up in the room. So whatever that nerddom is for you, help it make connections with other people.
And there's my first nerddom was probably Greek mythology.
Yeah.
And you can draw a very direct line from that through Wonder Woman comics, through Neil Gaiman and Sandman, through the work that I do today. Very.
Absolutely.
So it's all there.
That's fantastic. Well, Kelly Sue, speaking of reboots and remakes, that Kong, the musical, could maybe be considered like a remix somewhere in there. I can't wait to jump into this with you and Sydney, which we'll do in just a moment. But before that, I do want to give some quick housekeeping for all the folks out there listening to Pop Stream. In case you're new here, and if you are, the warmest of welcomes to you. Pop Stream is live every first and third Thursday of the month on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter for real-time conversation, games, and more. The chat is where you want to be, I promise. So if you're watching live now, I want you to shout out some of your favorite works by Kelly Sue. I've been reading Bitch Planet and Pretty Deadly over the last couple of days and have fallen in love with them. I can't wait to go back and read some more. But even if you can't watch live, even if that time doesn't work for you, you can always find episodes on demand on YouTube and major podcast services. Our next episode, like every third Thursday edition of Pop Stream, is the Pop Stream Learning Lounge, which is our show specifically for educators, librarians, and parents working to bring pop culture into their learning settings. We'll be talking anime in the classroom with award-winning writer and educator and CEO of Weird Enough Productions, Tony Weaver Jr. But this episode of Pop Stream is all about the fans like you. Every first Thursday, we cover comics, graphic novels and manga, film and TV, and gaming. And Pop Stream has plenty of guest authors, creators, and other folk to enrich your pop culture experiences. Just like on our last episode, where we talked with guest Shauna Potter, front person of the band War on Women, and author of Making Spaces Safer, a guide to giving harassment the boot wherever you work, play, and gather. Or like this episode right now, where we're getting rebooted. Y'all like what I did there? Hey, clever. I feel like I need a reboot sometimes and just get like the whole reboot treatment. Just like make me pretty, please. Make me modern. I hate shopping for clothes, so that's what I tell my husband. Like, let's go shopping and please give me the reboot treatment.
There you go.
But this year, especially, we are just surrounded by all types of reboots. We have Dune, Matrix, Cruella. They just announced a Highlander reboot. So I want to know, Kelly Sue and Sydney, are there any reboots that stick out in your mind as being either really successful or really unsuccessful? We're talking games, movie, TV, comics, in any of those kind of areas.
Yeah, I mean, I would say really successful. The most interesting ones to me have probably been Battlestar Galactica, Westworld, and Watchmen. And those would be in the like giant audiences, you know.
I guess I didn't realize that Battlestar Galactica was a reboot.
Really?
I'm not that's not my nerd camp, but I've only ever heard of Battlestar Galactica. Was there something new that they put out?
Battlestar Galactica was a TV show when I was a kid.
Okay, see, this is where the disconnect is. Yes, tell me more.
Yeah, so Battlestar Galactica was a kind of cheesy but wildly popular television show. It starred Richard Hatch. His character is played by a woman in the reboot, and her name is flying right out of my head. Short blonde pilot. All right. Well, this is going.
Sydney, anything?
No, I haven't seen Battlestar Galactica. I was hoping that somebody else was going to come up with it.
Bail us out here. Or I can look it up. Yeah. So it was. It was huge. Starbuck.
There it is. Thank you, Chris.
Yes. And so it was completely, and the Cylons were robots. The Cylons, I mean, like robots. Like they did not pass for humans, right? They had like these little lights over their heads. It was a giant big deal. So
now, you did mention Watchmen, which happens to be one of my absolute favorite ones that has come out recently. That show was absolutely phenomenal. What did you particularly enjoy about that? What makes that a good reboot for you?
I think it was really interesting because rather than trying to not acknowledge some of the problems of the source material and understand that there are people in my industry who will like, there are no problems in the source material.
It's perfect.
Yeah. But it remained respectful of the ideas, but rather than ignoring the problems of the source material, like zeroed in on them. Mm-hmm. And so, in particular, Watchmen's all about the women, you know, and let's just say that the source material is not.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, oh man, it was one of those, it was just like such a tight 10 episodes. And the performances in it were absolutely fabulous. And I love how, like you said, they took the source material and just did something completely new with it and embraced the issues in a way that they could almost correct them, right? Or address them.
I mean, I think they were expanding on the ideas, but also doing so using a different language, sort of using different tools, rather than. I mean, because the see, I have this. I mean, and it's. I'm in a difficult position of not. I don't like to talk about what I don't like about things.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, you know, Watchmen's a really important book. Mm-hmm. And it was, I mean, I was supposed to study for a final in college, and I had a final the next day that I was not really prepared for. And
so you read Watchmen instead.
Dropped Watchmen off at my house. And instead, I was like, well, I'm just going to take a look at one of these.
Let me take a peek.
And then I read all of Watchmen and then thought about Watchmen rather than studying for my final. So it's and I don't really regret it.
Did it help you pass your final?
It was, but I remember Watchmen, right? Mm-hmm. So I mean, no. disrespect. But at the same time, there are things about it that I think were handled differently in the show, where they just kind of zeroed in on them beautifully and powerfully. It was just extraordinarily well done, top to bottom.
I feel like that is one of the things that reboots and remakes allow us to do. That's one of the great things about them being so popular right now, is that we have that opportunity, and not every reboot does this by any means, but they have the opportunity to revisit the source material and make adjustments to how we frame things, or how we view things, or how we present characters, how much depth we give them. That is something that I do like to see when it's done correctly, and I think that Watchmen is such a great example of someone doing that right. Yeah. Sydney, what about you? Are there any reboots that stick out to you as being really successful?
I was thinking about, like, just in terms of even just like popularity level. And this isn't really a recent one, but Doctor Who was essentially a reboot, because it had that huge break in between, like the original series and then the new series. And it was essentially a new series while still being a continuation of the old series. Mm-hmm. And it sort of throws back to the old series in a lot of ways that's very respectful to it, while still being like something that people can just come in brand new, never having seen any of the old stuff, and follow along and be like, okay, this is great, and still get like what's the core of the show. Mm-hmm. And it's obviously still going. It's been a minute, but it's
something that did that for me was the most recent God of War video game, created by Cory Barlog. So back in the early 2000s, God of War was a series where it's all about fighting, and there are boobs hanging out and you're fighting, it's just like the most masculine, like, let's rip heads and everything like that. Right. 15 years later, the developer has a child now, and his worldview has changed. And so when he develops the sequel, which is similar, that it's coming back many, many years later, continuation technically of the same story, but a very different game, he addresses all these real issues of father-son relationships, and really makes it, he says, like, I'm a different person now than I was then. And so I'm going to make things that matter to me now. And that changes the way that I write. Kelly Sue, you're a mom. Has that changed the way, or does that influence the way that you write ever? Like, what do you think about, like, I need to write something that will pass on a message? Does it change the way you think about characters?
I suspect not the way you're asking.
Sure. Yeah. No, in any way.
But I mean, I'm certainly a different writer at 50 than I was at 25, and mm-hmm. and I think part of that is experience, and part of that is frontal lobe development. Like I'm interested in different things. I'm bored by what I thought was fascinating when I was younger.
Sure.
I'm interested in things that are messy and complex. It's harder and harder for me to sort humans into good and bad. It's no longer anything it does't hold water in my life experience at this point. So I think it's I think I'm most certainly a different writer for every development in my life over the years. And I think there are certainly ways that my children, there's a character in Historia that's very influenced by my daughter. There a lot of Pretty Deadly is very influenced by my son, but I think it is about them as people rather than my identity as a mother. Although, you know, I'm certainly, I write I mean, as near as I can tell, I have a bit of mirror blindness. It's hard to talk about your own. It's so interesting how it's much easier to characterize, you know, oh, he writes about this and she writes about that and they write about this. And then I'm like, you know, but I am infinitely versatile. Like, you know, and like you have this idea about yourself, and it's not true. You write about the same stuff. You write about your own. It's just harder to see your own. But I have been told that I write about identity a lot, and so because I've been through these various identity shifts in my life, you know, like it's fascinating how different you're treated in the world as a married woman, you know, like single woman versus, and then like as an older woman, you're sort of expected to recede, you know, and like there are like there's all of these different things that become these identity shifts, and when you become a mother, having the sort of questions about like, okay, who am I? How do I prioritize? There's a lot of thinking that happens there. Much longer answer than what you were
Oh my gosh, no, not at all. That's great because I mean, all of our identities change as we get older, and it's really cool to see how that influences, or hear you say how that influences your writing and the type of things that you write about. A funny moment, as I was reading Captain Marvel earlier today, and there's a scene where Carol Danvers is talking to Tick, the teenage alien, and she just gets real with it, or she gets real with Tick and is like, look, I'm not putting up with it anymore. I was giving you a slide because you're a teenager and this is how you react when you're young, but I'm cutting to the chase, cut the bullshit. Like, here we go. Right. And me, as I've never been a parent, but as someone who used to be a teacher, I was like, I know exactly what that feels like, right? That moment where you have to get with the kid and be like, I've been giving you grace and the benefit of the doubt for a long time, but we need to have a real heart-to-heart talk. And I just, you know, as we learn how to relate with different people in different ages, I kind of saw that coming out in your writing, and it was really cool to see.
It's funny. And you know, my experience as a parent is really about trying to learn to listen, because I remember so much of childhood, you know, and I grew up in a different time, but it was, you know, it was so much about, you know, and I remember like, no, you need to let me finish my sentence. I really do have something to contribute, you know, like, and so it's such a like important thing to me that my children have autonomy and be able to finish their sentence and be heard. And so that I think is like number one directive. Although there is a time at which you're like, okay, now I've heard you.
Right.
I only need you to be compliant enough that I can keep you safe. Okay.
Yep. I have heard you. Now I need you to hear me. Well, we talked about reboots that we think have worked really well. Have there been any that stick out that haven't worked really well? I know for me, the one that sticks out in my mind is, did y'all know that they rebooted Heathers? The 1980s film, right? It's a fantastic musical, first of all. But then they tried to adapt it into it was on Stars or some cable network. It had a season, but they did this interesting thing where they made the Heathers. So for this reboot, the Heathers, one of them was a gay boy, or a queer man. I'm saying this as a queer man, and I'm stumbling over the language here. But one of them was a heavier set girl, and so they took what would be the kids that got made fun of maybe in the 80s version and made them the Heathers of the new high school or the new age, which could have been a cool idea. But then there were some of the issues of the original Heathers, like, I don't know, teenage suicide, that were not dealt with as well. And so that sticks out to me as something like some of the ideas were there, but in the execution, it kind of was flawed. Anything stick out for you guys as reboots that just didn't quite cut it?
You know, when I was trying to think about this earlier, the answer that I came up with, I don't think is actually a reboot. So I don't, I think that's just a sequel. But my answer was RoboCop, because RoboCop is like maybe one of my all-time favorite movies. And so to me, there is only one RoboCop. There was one movie made, and it was perfect, and no one ever made another one. And like, I will fight you. They don't exist. La 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 la. But I don't. I actually think that was a poor answer, because I think those are actually sequels and not reboots, or reimaginings, or
There's some gray area there for sure, because even in a sequel, you're remixing ideas. You're taking some of those ideas and twisting them up, right?
Yeah.
I feel that way about the Last of Us game, and they're making an HBO adaptation. If you're going to give it to anybody, I'm glad it's with HBO, but like, do we need a TV show like 8 years after that game was made? Sydney, anything for you?
I honestly thought about this a lot, and I don't know. I couldn't really think of one that I was like, oh, I didn't like that. That was terrible. But I don't know. I feel like with what you're talking about with like the HBO, the Last of Us, as somebody who has also played The Last of Us and loved The Last of Us, I feel like in a situation like that, I always struggle with a reboot that moves it from like one medium to another, where like you have the video game and then you get, a movie or a television series, because I think that certain things work well in certain mediums for a specific reason. And I don't know if that's going to translate to a television series. You know what I mean? Like, it does sometimes and it doesn't. And yeah.
And this is where the terminology gets sticky too, right? So is that a reboot, or is it just an adaptation?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We could have that same conversation about Watchmen. You could say the Watchmen TV series was not a reboot, but a sequel, and the Watchmen film, which people like to forget exists, was an adaptation.
Right.
And neither of them really reboots. So
it's kind of weird, because a lot of reboots nowadays are even just kind of continuing the story. I'm thinking things like Gilmore Girls. I'm thinking things like even the Animaniacs. Like, the Animaniacs came back and they were the exact same show that they were, back in the 90s. There wasn't a whole lot. They just kind of restarted it, right?
Right.
But I think regardless of whether we're seeing, sequels coming back from the dead, like Matrix, something that has been off for a long time that's coming back now, or really brand new ideas like Cruella or Joker or something like that. Why do you think this idea of reboots and remixes is so ubiquitous right now? Like, what is it about the last 5-10 years and kind of going forward? Because it doesn't show any sign of stopping. Are we just running out of ideas, or what? Why do you think it's so common right now?
It's just marketing. I'm sorry.
Oh, totally.
I mean, it's a very dull answer, but it's very true. So, it's all about there being an established audience for the IP and name recognition, because there are, when I'm just bringing, I am an old, so when I was a young person, there were 3 television stations, right? So now you have to cut through so much. You're competing against, in television's probably never been better, really. There's so much good TV on.
Yeah, we have heard that a lot, yeah.
And there's so much variety available that any advantage that anybody has for a pre-established audience is what it's all about. And it's I'm afraid it's no more complex than that. It's just, that's when you go into a pitch meeting, if you are pitching on IP that corporate family already owns, and it has an established audience and name recognition, you're 10 steps ahead of anybody else. So it just comes down to that. We haven't run out of ideas, and nor have we run out of a willingness or an interest in making original material.
It's just harder for that to get seen, it feels like.
It's just harder to get it on the air.
Yeah. Well, I know that you have worked on, established characters a lot, right? So when you are working on characters that somebody else originated or an IP that somebody else has originated, what are some of the things that you think about when you're creating that new work?
I always go in sort of trying to think about what is my take, what is my point of view on this character, and then and if it's a superhero character, I have a very specific approach where I look for hi Kitty, I look for what their what sort of mythic model they're in, like what are their stories about, and then I try to identify what their core wound is and then connect it to their power set. And then that kind of gives me the story engine that I'm going to use to tell stories, for as long as I've signed on to tell stories with that character. So it's for superheroes, it's a very specific approach that I have. But with anything, I was brought a horror property to propose a rethinking of. They wanted a feminist perspective on this property a couple years ago, and and I just didn't have a point of view on it. And it was I didn't feel like there was a feminist point of perspective on this thing. I thought this was like smashing two things together that really, really did not go together. And that if I were to do that, I would have to change the things that were appealing about that core material so much that the people who came to it because I was doing it would not want to come to it because of what the source material was. And the people who loved the source material were not going to be there for the things that I was bringing. So I didn't understand who we were making this for. So I took 3 days, I think, to do a bunch of research and see if I could come up with a take, and then ultimately just passed and was like, I don't think this exists. I think you're going to ruin something somebody loves for no real reason,
I like that. I like that you got to have a reason to ruin. Not that everything's going to ruin what somebody loves, but if you're going to mess with it, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So if you're going to mess with it, then give it that perspective, right? Give someone that reason.
The artist always has to come in with a point of view,
Mm-hmm.
You really have to have a take on it. And I mean, what is the thing that you are bringing to this that amplifies something that was already there, or looks at something that was already there in the source material, but from a different point of view, something that we have come to in a more contemporary age,
Mm-hmm.
Like, so this same problem, how is it evolved since this thing was made? Like,
right.
How can we expand on the ideas there?
So kind of going along this line, Christy on Facebook asks, when you're rebooting a character, how constrained do you feel to what past writers have written about that character? And I think you were just touching on trying to find that balance. But how much of that previous work, like, I don't know, do you feel that you have to hang on to the majority of it, or do you kind of take it piecemeal and say this stays, but maybe not this part? How do you take that?
I mean, when I've never come onto something that only had one iteration before me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I usually try to take in as much of the history of the character as I can, and then find what is consistent throughout and hold on to that, right? Like, what is the thing that is iconic about this character that exists and transcends all of the different artists that have worked on that character. That whatever that is the reason that this character has persisted. And so that has to be honored. And to be honest, it will be. Like, it has a way of, like, there was a thing with Carol, with Captain Marvel, where I was annoyed in reading all of her stuff, where I was like, Carol always fights Carol. Why is Carol always fighting Carol, right? Like, so whether it was like Carol fighting someone who was who looked like her, like, or was impersonating her, or Carol fighting herself from another dimension, or Carol, you know, like Carol fighting her own inner battles, you know, whatever. I had this. I was like, I felt it was kind of limiting and a kind of, you know, male perspective on the female character. Like, sweetheart, why are you always getting in your own way, you know? And I was like, I'm not gonna do that. And I did, straight out of the gate. I didn't even see I was doing it. But I think that there's something about those characters that they just sort of work through you. That you're like, these are my ideas, and I'm gonna do these things. And they're like, and this, you know? And that's why they've stuck around. You know, but there are, you know, this is my wildly problematic opinion, but the most popular character in comics is Batman, and I think Batman is deeply flawed as a concept, and you know, that's fine. I'm not trying to take away Batman from anybody, but like I wrote one Batman story because they gave me the opportunity to work with Klaus Janson and John Romita Jr. And I was like, okay, basically I'm going to write any character. What character would you like me to write? Because I will write that character if I'm working with John Romita Jr. and Klaus Janson. But and so I was like, all right, I found a story. But I think the angst-ridden, you know, teenage scarred, gothy, billionaire vigilante is deeply problematic as a hero. You know, I don't believe in ethical billionaires, so I think that's a problem.
I've been intrigued as to how some of the recent works have treated, especially White Knight, the recent Batman White Knight comics that have come out, because they do really dive into exactly what you're talking about. Is like, this is problematic. Like all the problems that this man causes, let alone the fact he's got all this money wrapped up in it, is hugely problematic. So, I love that those have been able to address some of those issues that you're talking about. But yeah, when you look at the broad history of that character.
But I mean, there's a lot just in our, you know, there's a lot we have to accept. It's already hard that comics, superhero comics in particular, I'm talking about actually, we externalize conflict as violence, right? So ultimately, every story has a violent solution. Mm-hmm. And there are days when that's hard to write. You know, I had to write a comic, and every comic has to have these big action scenes. You know, every superhero comic. I need to be very specific about that. And I love the superhero comics. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not slumming it. I do it because I love it. Mm-hmm. I think it is a wonderful, valuable genre. You know, I think it has a lot to say, and I think it is very effectively used often. But I also think that there are some things that make it hard. And you know, the day of the mass shooting in Newtown, I was writing a comic, And it was very hard to write that day. And it was very hard to wrap my brain around how, you know, we all find ways where, you know, the violence is, you know, incidental, you know, or, but ultimately we're writing violence as solutions, you know, or violence as externalization of conflict. And there's days that's real hard to do.
So we touched on this a little bit with reboots. We have opportunities to go back and revisit some things, right? Make tweaks based on the current climate, based on things that we've learned. Do you think that there's an opportunity with reboots, specifically in superhero comics, to not cut out the violence, but say something more? I bring this up because I think in Captain Marvel specifically, one thing that I noticed about it was the pacing of it, and that there's a lot packed in. There's a lot of dialogue, a lot of story development, a lot of character development packed into each issue. Whereas some other comics, I don't feel there's as much. You do have the action scenes that take up a lot, maybe with fewer words, and they can be beautiful and stunning. But with reboots, do we have the opportunity to say more, either with or, I don't know, at odds to the violence that we see in comics?
I mean, yes. But also, you know, nobody wants to read a superhero comic about, you know, people talking in diners.
Yes. You know, that is not why we read Batman. No.
No. So, you know, there are ways to rethink it and ways to like really sort of examine the metaphor. And, you know, I continue to write superheroes, and I continue to write fantasy violence. And I'm not saying that, you know, violence and culture in popular culture is responsible for violence in the world.
Of course.
I don't think it is. But how we use those metaphors is something that we do, like, it's worth thinking about. It is worth thinking about, like, how are we externalizing conflict? And, you know, and you got to think about it, you know, also, like, you know, just want to see cool stuff, you know, like, you know, you really, like, that was one of the funnest things about Aquaman was, you know, like, mother shark and underwater, and like let's do like memories encased in these sort of bioluminescent polyps and like crazy stuff like that comics can do. Or I asked Robson Horka to draw like, okay, if Mara is aquakinetic, so she can manipulate water, right? So she could theoretically make a sculpture of Arthur by pulling the water away from the oxygen in the water, right? Like, so she could sculpt him in the water out of air. And like, it was like, can you draw that? You know, like, that's a really easy thing for me to say. Can you draw it?
Right.
And he did, and it was amazing, you know? And there's like really cool stuff there, but yeah, there are, as we continue to use this language and use these, how do we transcend the power fantasy aspect of it, right? So it continues to be a power fantasy, but is also, but there are other aspects to it as well, right?
Yeah, I think we see that in video games a lot too. That industry is having that same sort of, obviously the power fantasy is what's fun. That's what draws a lot of us to it, but there's the ability to say so much more.
Also, there's a point that you get to where you're just like, you've got apocalypse fatigue, you know, everything's bigger and then this and I'm buying this good, and you're like, and now I don't care anymore, you know? there's a point where like smaller becomes bigger. It's that interesting also alchemy in writing where the more specific you are, the more universal it becomes, which is just also strange and fascinating.
That's almost circles back to what we talked about at the beginning when we're talking about things that we're nerdy about, right? And how that those simple things are where you find the connections. Yeah. I found that in Mr. Miracle, the latest run of Mr. Miracle, the way that Tom King dealt with the relationship between Big Barda and Scott Free and worked all of that into this beautiful story.
Tom would argue with me that people, oh no, totally, they will read a comic about people talking in diners.
Right. So kind of last question here for you. You mentioned that a lot of the properties you worked on, many other people before you have worked on those, which means likewise, many people have worked on those properties after you, right? How does it feel to see something that you have worked on and put your stamp on and then watch it go into somebody else's hands? I imagine that has to be a pretty unique feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I don't usually read the books like that immediately follow my runs, although like, I'm really supportive, but it's sort of like like you just broke up with your ex and you broke up on really good terms and you want them to like be happy and
you want the best for them.
Yeah, like you do genuinely want them to be happy and go on with their lives, but you're not gonna like go to their Facebook page, right? Like that's
not if you want to be healthy.
No. So so I mean there's a sort of like there's been some really incredible writers that followed me on Captain Marvel and I love them all to death and we have a kind of sisterhood that I'm really into. But I'm very frank in that, like, oh no, I have not read that. Like, I love you. I think you are awesome. I wish you well. I'm sure your stuff is incredible, and it is not for me to read. And I don't think there's anything. It doesn't. It's not like my take is the one true take. It's not that at all. It's just. I'm just happier this way.
I know if it were me, I would be like, oh, I should have done that. Oh, what a great idea. What a great idea. Why didn't I think of that? Right.
Yeah.
You're just better off not seeing it.
Yeah. It's all good. Unless you have to go back to it and then you're going to have to read it, but I haven't had to do it yet. So.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Well, Kelly Sue, this has been so much fun. It has been great talking to you about reboots and remakes. One last time, where can people find your work? And is there anything that you're working on right now that you want to send people in that direction?
You can find my work pretty much anywhere you can find comic books, which would be like from your local comic book store to any major bookstore or independent bookstores. But where do you get books? You should probably go to where you get books. My last name is spelled DeConnick, DeConnick. And I am currently really psyched about this long overdue, but it will be out. I don't think they have announced the date yet, but I'm working on this history of the Amazons from the perspective of the Amazons. That is this huge, literally epic project that is called Historia. That's from DC's Black Label. If you go to Phil Jimenez's Instagram, he posts sneak peeks of it every once in a while. So yeah, very excited about that. At Kelly Sue, although I'm off of Twitter for the month of June, so I just need a break. Not this much. Right. And then on Instagram at Kelly Sue D. And then if you just want to text me, you can text my community at 503-738-1029. And if you want to get updates at that number texted to you when I have books coming out, you can text the word MilkFed to that number. That's 503-738-1029. And if you want semi-regular cheering you on and motivational texts from me, you can text BGSD. That stands for, and this is adult language, bitches get shit done, to 503-738-1029.
I did not write that down, but I'm very glad that I can go watch this on YouTube later and get in on that chat. Thank you so much, Kelly Sue. This has been a blast. We can't thank you enough for coming on to the show.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, for everybody that's sticking around, we will be creating some really ridiculous and unnecessary reboots via Mad Libs here in a moment. But before that, this is normally the part of the segment where I give you the pitch as to what is new going on with Pop Culture Classroom. We're doing that a little bit different today. So for those of you that may not know, Pop Culture Classroom, we do workshops and we do pop culture-based educational workshops in schools, libraries, and community centers all around the Denver metro area. We have been doing those throughout the pandemic, and we have multiple workshops going on per week. And we actually had some really sweet thank yous come in from some recent things that we have done. One of our instructors, Dion, went out and taught an intro to comics class here not too long ago. We had some students write some thank you letters. So they said things like, "Thank you so much for meeting with us. Learning how to draw an actual face was so fun, even though mine ended up being a little silly. Also, your artwork is amazing. Thank you for teaching us how to draw faces. This was very helpful for me, especially since I was specifically looking forward to it. I've been doing well on side profiles and I've been wanting to learn the front of the face. So this was a perfect demonstration. And thank you for your time to come teach us class about how to write and draw characters in a comic book. I've learned a lot about writing and drawing characters from you, and I hope we can use these skills in the future. I really appreciate what you have done for us." So that was from a local middle school where we did an intro to comic creation lesson so that they could then create comics about a poem that they read. Another thing that we've done lately is we created a video for an elementary school's career day, all about careers in video games. This school is actually in Lufkin, Texas, and I, in the mail, received all of these personalized thank you cards from all of these students who were really, really excited to hear about all the different types of careers in video games, and if they love writing, or if they love telling people about new things, or if they have leadership skills, where they can fit within the video game industry. This is just an example of a lot of the workshops that we do for students here in the Denver metro area and beyond. And we need your help to be able to continue to do that. So this is our ask for donations. You can always donate to us at popcultureclassroom.org/donate. Every little bit helps. It helps fund our instructors. It helps fund materials to go into schools and help them fall in love with learning and increase their literacy through the magic of pop culture. All right, Sydney.
Yes.
Are you ready to pitch some absolutely ridiculous remakes and reboots?
I'm ready.
Okay, so here is what we have done. We have created some Mad Libs that will be reboots for first comics, and then we will do one for TV and film, and then we've got one for video games, and then we've got one for film and TV, and we've created these Mad Libs. So for you guys that are watching right now, we're going to be asking you for a set of items. So for this first one, we're going to be rebooting a comic. We need you to give us ideas for hero names. So give us a hero that you would like to see their story rebooted. And then we are looking for an adjective, a verb, an alias name. So Captain Marvel is Carol Danvers. What is this hero's alias? A place, a noun, a bureaucracy like the FBI or something like that. And then a group of heroes. So go ahead and put those in the chat. And while we are getting those ideas, Sydney, how much of a treat was Kelly Sue?
That was awesome. She was great.
Anything kind of jump out to you from that conversation with her?
Well, I liked her comparison of like stuff that she had worked on and somebody else taking, like, having that real, like, I wish you the best but I'm not going to stalk your Facebook. That's great. That's life advice too.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Like mental health stuff. But that was awesome. And I liked how she talked about the way that she approaches characters. They are established characters, but that doesn't mean that she's limited, and so she had that really cool approach of like examining like the character's wound and things like that. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. That balance that you have to find, I always think about, does someone think about the fan reaction, right? When they are writing or rebooting something. And what we kind of got from Kelly Sue was like, yes and no. Like you think about what makes that character, but you don't necessarily go for that one particular thing that the audience loved. You go for what defines that character, and you have to have a reason for those changes.
Yeah.
All right, we have an established hero name, Supergirl. So we're going to be rebooting Supergirl, okay? So that means the other things that we need here, we still need just an adjective, a verb, an alias for Supergirl. It doesn't necessarily have to be her real one. A place, a noun, a bureaucracy, and a hero group. It was so interesting reading Captain Marvel today and seeing the Guardians of the Galaxy, because it was written, the one that I was reading was written back in like 2013, I believe. So before the Guardians movie came out. And especially as someone who's not as well versed in comics, seeing all the comparisons with the characters was really fun. Okay. So we're going to go Supergirl. Sydney, why don't you give me an adjective here?
Adjective. Hungry.
Hungry. All right. I like it. Okay. Let's see. What about a verb?
Jumped.
Jumped. Okay.
Or jump, then, whatever tense you need.
Jumped. We'll figure it out. What about a alias name? What is Supergirl's real name?
I don't know the answer to that.
Oh no, not her like real name, but like what is the real name that we can give in the Supergirl reboot? Or it's like Janine.
That works. Janine.
Oh, we did actually get in the chat. We got a Peter Quill, so we'll use Peter Quill as the alias of Supergirl.
All right.
Let's see. For a place, we got a suggestion of a desert island. Okay, I like that.
Desert island.
Let's see. Why don't you give me a bureaucracy name, Sydney?
CSI.
The CSI.
CSI. I was just watching CSI.
Investigators. Okay. Let's see. For a noun, we got a popsicle. I love that.
Popsicle.
For adjective, we got forgotten. And then the hero name, this is a good one. Well done, Graham Cracker Crust. We got Teen Titans. Okay, so just to recap here, our established hero that we're going to be rebooting is Supergirl. Our adjective was hungry. Our verb is jumped. The alias is Peter Quill. The place is a desert island. We have an adjective of forgotten. Another noun, which is a popsicle. The name of the bureaucracy is the CSI. And the hero group is Teen Titans. So here we go. Here is our rebooted version of Supergirl. Supergirl, Earth's hungriest hero, is back and jumping headfirst into an all-new ongoing adventure. As Supergirl, aka Peter Quill, makes a dramatic decision that will alter the course of their life and all of the desert island in the months to come. But as Peter Quill takes on a mission to return a forgotten popsicle to the desert island, Peter Quill lands in the middle of an uprising against the CSI. Peter Quill discovers that he has a history with the CSI, and when the bad guy tries to blackmail Peter Quill, it's payback time. Guest starring the Teen Titans.
Nice.
I don't know. That doesn't sound terrible. I would love to see
That
Peter
doesn't
Quill
sound
as
terrible.
Supergirl. So this was actually taken from Captain Marvel Volume 1. This is the description that we found on Amazon, and then we just kind of changed around some of these words. So that was our comic book reboot, learning all about Peter Quill, who's now Supergirl. And man, when I was reading about the history of Captain Marvel and just like all the different Captain Marvels that there have been throughout the years, it's not far-fetched for me to believe that if they weren't different Marvel and DC, but that Peter Quill might someday become Supergirl.
Yeah.
All right.
Crossover.
So next, we're going to do a TV reboot. Sydney, do you want to lead us through this one?
Yes. So for the TV reboot, let me get my list here. Hang on. All right. So we are looking for a show name. We're looking for 2 characters from whatever show. Measurement of time. So like, am I looking at the right one here?
Yes, you should be.
Okay. I was like, wait a second. I got very confused. Measurement of time, a place, a business, 2 different adjectives, and then a 3rd character and a 4th character.
So yeah, whatever show you pick, those characters should be from that show, whatever show we want to reboot.
Yes. And Matt, I'm going to rely on you to get those from the chat because I can't
Perfect.
see it.
No worries.
I had it and it's gone and I don't know how to get it back. So,
all right. So give us a show name, give us 4 characters from that show, and then a measurement of time, a place, a business, and an adjective. I'm trying to think. I guess Sabrina. I know you really enjoyed the Sabrina reboot, right?
I did. Yes. I really enjoyed it.
What did you?
And it was very different, obviously, from like the original Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Is the movie the ultimate source material for Sabrina? Because it was a movie, right?
The comics.
Okay.
There's like Archie comics, which I have not read. And right. So if I'm wrong about that, somebody please correct me, but I'm pretty sure the comics are the original source material. And it somehow takes place in the same universe as Riverdale, which kind of confuses me, but I rolled with it. It's great. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was just very like my style of things that I enjoy.
Not mine. That's okay. My husband really loved it, but I was not a fan. Great. To be fair, I probably didn't give it enough time. All right, Graham Cracker Crust is here with the recommendations. We'll give it a couple more seconds to see if we get any more. Okay. Graham Cracker Crust wants to reboot The Simpsons. Let's see if anybody else has a different one. Oh, no, Chris has already got Simpsons on the scratch pad. So we'll do Simpsons. So we still need a measurement of time, a place, a business, and an adjective. See if we get those. Trying to think of other reboots that really stand out in my mind. Because, I mean, the video games are all over the place. We did watch quite a bit of Animaniacs. So I don't think we finished this season. But it was quite funny. I did enjoy it. They
rebooted or are rebooting the Rugrats.
Yeah, on Paramount Plus.
Art style. Yeah, the art style is so different and it kind of freaks me out.
So the next season of RuPaul's Drag Race, Drag Race All-Stars Season 6 is streaming exclusively on Paramount Plus. So while I've got that, because I'm going to have to get that, I'm going to at least give Rugrats a try. I watched like a comparison of the original opening and the new opening, and it hit me in the nostalgia feels.
Oh, nice.
All right, we got a couple time. We got 13 nanoseconds and milliseconds, or light years. We have a few of those. Okay, so give me a place, Sydney.
The grocery store.
The grocery store. Okay. And then actually, you're leading this one. So I'm going to give you a business.
Okay.
Let's see, Rent-A-Center.
Rent-A-Center.
And then for an adjective, we're going to go sticky.
Sticky. Good adjective.
Yes. As I was making these, that was at any time I was like, I need an adjective. I was like, does sticky work? And I don't know why. That was the one that I kept coming back to, but
it stuck.
Okay. So we have Simpsons, Homer and Flanders are characters 1 and 2, light years, a grocery store, a Rent-A-Center. Those might be, I think we only had one. Oh, the place is the grocery store. The business is Rent-A-Center. Sticky.
Yes.
And then we have Marge and Santa's Little Helper.
Awesome. Okay. So our Mad Lib. All right. 2 characters from show. All right. Sorry, I'm figuring out where I'm putting these. So Homer and Flanders and the rest of the gang reunite for The Simpsons Light Years in the Life. The premiere kicks off in the present day grocery store where character 1, Homer, still runs the Rent-A-Center and Flanders has experienced some sticky situations. As Flanders works through struggles and Homer deals with some, I'll just use sticky again, sticky issues of his own. Viewers will see Marge handling the loss of her husband, Santa's little helper.
Marge and Santa's little helpers got together. Okay, I like that. Yes. I can see that in this reboot. Homer runs a grocery store. That's excellent.
Yep.
And then that one was taken from. Does anybody know what that might have been taken from? Anybody got any clues? The loss of her husband, Richard, might give it away there, or the time in the life. This one was taken from the Gilmore Girls reboot recently. Do you watch Gilmore Girls?
Gilmore Girls. I watched a few episodes a while ago, but I never got into the Gilmore Girls.
I never watched it.
I don't know why. I don't know why. I just, maybe because I didn't like watch it like consecutively. It was just one of those that would come on TV and I would watch it and I'd be like, I don't like it. And I would turn it off.
I'm good. I'm okay. All right. We're going to reboot a video game next. So here's what I need from you all. I need the name of a game that you want to reboot, a year, an adjective, a body part, a genre, like a video game genre. So we're talking shooter, horror, side scroller, RPG, whatever. A number, a noun, an enemy type that you might see in a game, maybe the game that we're rebooting, another noun, and then 2 characters. Bonus points if those 2 characters are from whatever game we mentioned. Apparently, we're missing out on Gilmore Girls. It says Christy in the chat. Also, I've
been told that.
I'm glad to know that we only need to watch the first RoboCop. That's another one of those I haven't seen yet. It was before my time. All right, so a game, a year, an adjective, a body part, a genre, a number, a noun, an enemy type, another noun, and 2 characters. At McLaughlin just says virtual reality game.
Virtual reality game.
Ooh, Earthworm Jim. Did you ever play Earthworm Jim back in the day?
No.
It was ridiculous. It was like on the Sega Genesis, and you are literally an earthworm in a spacesuit.
Oh my God. No, I never played that.
It's like a little platforming game. I like Earthworm Jim. Let's use Big Toe. I like that for the body part. Let's see. Give me a year, Sydney.
1975.
Good year. Also a band, the 1975. Nice. Let's see. What about a genre? What's your favorite video game genre?
I am totally blanking on genres. You said side scroller, RPG.
Oh, okay. Virtual reality game is the genre here that was being recommended. There it is. Okay, perfect. Oh, okay. For enemy type, the Demogorgon. I do like that.
Nice.
All right, so now we just need a noun. Sydney, give me a noun. In fact, give me 2 nouns.
Noun. Cat. And what's a noun? Computer.
Cat and computer. Excellent.
I'm just looking around at things that I see around me.
And then for characters, I guess we got to go with Jim. For some reason, I remember a sheep in Earthworm Jim. I could be making that up. It's been a good 20 years since I played that game, but we'll go with sheep as the second character.
All right.
Okay. Here's our video game reboot. And video game reboots, this is just like you would see a video game on Amazon. So this is just bullet points. Here we go. All right. I already lost it. Earthworm Jim. based on the release of 1975, but completely rebuilt for, we didn't get the adjective. We'll go with stickier narrative experience. A new over-the-toe camera mode and modernized control scheme. A more modern take on the survival virtual reality experience. Earthworm Jim delivers breathtaking photorealistic visuals in 16K. We didn't get a number, but I'll make it up. Let's see. The Demogorgon is brought to life with horrifyingly realistic wet gore effects. Cats react in real time, taking instant visible damage, making every computer count. And enjoy separate playable campaigns for both Jim and the sheep.
Nice.
I'd like to play as a sheep. Other great game with sheep, Ratchet and Clank. You have the gun that turns things into sheep. Very excited about the new Ratchet and Clank game. And that came from the Resident Evil 2 remake. The wet gore effect was something that they talked about a lot when that game came out. And the new over-the-shoulder camera angle. But for our game, it's over the toe.
Over the toe.
Earthworm Jim's toe.
Fantastic.
I feel like that would make things very difficult to play. Okay, we got one more. We're going to wrap this up with one more, and this will be our film reboot. So, Sydney, if you want to take the wheel for this one.
All right. So, for film, we need a type of person. We need a number. We need the name of a movie. We need 2 characters, preferably from that movie. Guess they don't have to be, but, they could be.
On the screen, you're all actually seeing when I tested these with my husband, those were his answers. So you can just ignore those things.
So a corporation such as Amazon, 2 adjectives, a noun from the movie, and 3 celebrities.
I mean, I do really like Brad Pitt, Tom Hardy, and Lakeith Stanfield.
Yeah.
All of those are fantastic gentlemen. We're watching Yasuke on Netflix right now. It's spelled Yasuke or Yasuke, but apparently it's pronounced Yasuke. And it's about a black samurai in Japan. It's a really cool anime.
Nice.
With Lakeith Stanfield. That's what brought that up. Let's see. What film? Have you seen Cruella? Are you planning on seeing Cruella?
I've not seen it. My original thought when I first heard about it was, why are you trying to make me feel empathy for a character who just wants to make coats out of puppies? But apparently it's very, very good. So I'm kind of changing I'll probably end up watching it. And I love Emma Stone. But at first I was like, does Cruella really need a backstory? But
yeah. We'll see. Maybe when it's not,
apparently it was good.
when it's not $30, I'll check it out. Ooh, I like type of person is a beekeeper. That's a good one. And then for this one, an adjective can be mysterious. Excellent recommendations
mysterious here. Beekeeper.
For a number, we have 0.0001. All right, keep them coming, guys. Let's see what this film reboot turns out to be. So far, I think our best one was the comic reboot. I would be interested to play Earthworm Jim with Over the Toe, but I don't think it would be good. And worms don't have toes. That's the other problem there.
Wet gore effect on Earthworm Jim.
Beavis and Butthead. Okay, that will be our characters 1 and 2. Excellent. So we still need one more adjective and then a noun. And the movie that we're rebooting. We haven't chosen the movie we're rebooting yet. I wouldn't mind seeing a good... I don't know. I say that. I was going to say I wouldn't mind seeing a good Heathers reboot, but maybe we shouldn't touch Heathers. Maybe that reboot that I did watch just proved that you can make it a musical. If you ever get a chance to see Heathers the musical, please watch Heathers the musical. It's excellent. But I don't know if we needed the reboot. Oh my God. Adjective sloppy. That's a good one.
Sloppy.
All right.
I don't know what movie I'd want to see rebooted.
Let's reboot Lord of the Rings. I don't think we need a Lord of the Rings reboot, but what if we're watching those right now, and I was like, it's time-wise, it's due. Special effects-wise, it's due, but it's so iconic.
But they're so good.
They're so... My opinion on that has changed a little bit with this most recent watch. They are very good. Don't get me wrong, but there are problems that could be addressed with a reboot, but it's so iconic. I don't know.
Yeah.
Celebrity. Oh, the Kardashians. Okay, because there are three of, I think there's more than three total, but we can go with Kim,
Courtney,
and Khloe.
Khloe, yeah.
Those are Kardashians. They just celebrated their 20th year of keeping up with their Kardashians. Can you believe that?
That's crazy.
All right, I think we've got all of our recommendations here. So Sydney, whenever you're ready.
Okay. I gotta see the Mad Lib. Hang on. Okay. The beekeeper icons who first hit the screen 0.001 years ago in Lord of the Rings are back. When Beavis and Butthead discover that, we don't have a corporation.
Oh no.
Matt, name a corporation.
Amazon.
Discover that Amazon is rebooting an old movie based on them. It's game on as the mysterious duo embark on another sloppy mission to stop the noun from a movie. What movie
The Ring.
To stop the Ring all over again, with all-star cameos from Kim, Khloe, and Kourtney Kardashian.
All right, so Lord of the Rings, but it's with Beavis and Butthead, and the Kardashians right now. The Kardashians are the elves. Oh my God, that would be absolutely ridiculous. I would watch it just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
There's a trailer for a new thing they're doing on Netflix. It's called America the Movie, I think. Have you seen this?
No.
It's an animated comedy that is star-studded, but it just made me, it's like George Washington and, doing ridiculous things, and there's lasers and all kinds of stuff. It just made me the ridiculous aspect of it. Like, I want to watch that because of how ridiculous it looks. That's what I would do for this reboot for sure. It's like when Paris Hilton was in movies for a little bit, when she was in like House of Wax, and she was in Repo, the genetic rock opera.
Yeah.
Seeing the
She
Kardashians,
was in an episode of Supernatural too.
Right? If the Kardashians can hold their own, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for indulging us in that ridiculousness. Sydney, it has been wonderful having you back on Pop Stream. I can't wait to have you back for the next episode.
Yes, I will happily come back.
Remind people, where can they find you?
I am on both Twitter and Instagram at Sidnaps. Should be right down there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, in 2 weeks for our next episode of Pop Stream, I will not be here, but Tajan and our rotating cast member Tara will be joined in the Pop Stream Learning Lounge by Tony Weaver Jr., who's an award-winning writer and educator and a member of the Forbes 30 Under 30, CEO of Weird Enough Productions, which is a social impact organization that uses diverse stories and comics to empower young people and the adults that support them. They'll be talking all about manga in the classroom on that episode, so don't miss out on that. And next month, we'll be back with another episode of Pop Stream to talk about the future of books and graphic novels with a to-be-announced guest. Finally, thank you to all of our listeners and supporters. We could not be here if it weren't for you. Don't forget to make sure you subscribe to Pop Stream on YouTube, Twitch, and your favorite podcast services. And don't forget that you can follow Pop Culture Classroom on social media. We are at Pop Classroom on Twitter and at Pop Culture Classroom on most things, I believe. You can even help us in our educational endeavors by donating at popcultureclassroom.org/donate. That helps fund things like our educational comic series, Colorful History, downloadable resources for educators, and workshops in schools, libraries, and community centers across the Denver metro area. Thank you guys for joining us. Happy Pride Month. Go be a little bit gay and go revel in your dirtiness. We'll see you next time.